Hello everyone and welcome back to the Wicked Weekly, in this case probably the Wicked Daily, as today is the 30th of April. Today is the day we go unto the breach and we are so freaking excited. These patch notes are massive, so the majority of this video is going to be patch notes focused. Now, this is being recorded live, so there's gonna be a little bit of extra interaction, not necessarily something that my normal videos are used to, but due to the absolute length of the patch notes, that's why we have to handle it this specific way. So there might be a couple of sections that it's more of a discussion, more of a kind of a thoughts about what this means. I have also had some hands-on with the breach update, so I will try to provide maybe some more context in the notes themselves. These are pretty massive. We do have, at the time of this recording, an hour and 15 minutes until the update is live. So if you're watching this video as a recording in and of itself and you want to come hang out and you want to talk about it, check the channel page. We should be live right now, or you can always go watch over on Twitch. Now, we are making a progress to 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube. We still got a little while to go, but I will bribe you. I will give away a Switch 2, a PS5, a console of your choice, $500 value to the community when we hit this massive goal. Maybe we'll do something at 90 as well. I'm open for suggestions. Leave them in the comments. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss my content. And other than that, let's dive in today. Kuro writes, it's been a little over a year since No Rest for the Wicked entered early access, and we couldn't be more proud of how far we've come. The team has been working incredibly hard, and the update goes live today at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. This update brings major new content, gameplay improvements, and marks a huge milestone for the studio. It's a special one for us, especially now that we're fully independent, and we're excited to keep building games and updates with the players. Now, what's really important about this, when I'm going to highlight this for everybody, the fully independent. This is one of the reasons why it took so long for this update to come. It really did have a big impact on them. But that means everybody who purchases the game, that money is going directly to support the devs and the game itself. Very positive, good stuff there. Anyway, they're excited to keep building games and updates with the players, not just for them. We've rebuilt systems, added new zones, rebalanced core mechanics, and expanded the game in every direction. Reminder that all existing saves will on the live will no longer be available at launch of the breach. You will need to use the Crucible Legacy Steam beta to access your old saves from launch up until the Crucible update, plus the various different hot fixes. So they're not gone, but they basically have been retired. Now, we've covered this in previous videos, but I want to kind of highlight, especially for anybody who has not seen the previous coverage, they are going to try and make sure that there's not a wipe with every update. In fact, the next wipe that they're hoping that it will be the 1.0 release. So ultimately, this should be something that is in play. And thank you, Iceman, for following over on Twitch. I appreciate that. All right. Let's dive into the section, and then we'll do a little bit of a discussion with everybody here who's with me live. From the performance, this is a key aspect because outside of console release, a number Steam Deck users out there always talk about how is the game running on Steam Deck. Performance, NVIDIA DLSS integration upgraded to version 4.0. Major restructure in the gameplay asset pipeline to reduce the amount of object meshes, animations, and textures permanently resident in the memory. They restructured several core systems to allow them to run in parallel with Unity's multi-threaded physics simulation, reducing time spent on the main thread for each frame. Numerous changes to object preloading, culling, streaming, and instigation moved work away from the main thread, increasing probability of preloading assets before they are needed, increasing efficiency of culling systems, etc. They did a major pass on their garbage collector. As a developer, I love this. This is the stuff that I live for. Give me the real core stuff. Garbage collection, baby. For memory allocations, reduce the elimination of allocations across many objects and systems, including our core timeline system, driving player playback for cinematics and gameplay animations and sounds. They moved away from running incremental garbage collection, improved baseline performance, and reduced continuation between threads. Various changes to world streaming mechanics to reduce cases of major pieces of the world visibility loading on screen when roaming around, respawning, or using whispers. Performance improvements and cloth simulation. Reduced the amount of objects and lights that were unnecessarily casting shadows, and then unified the frustum culling between the main camera rendering and the reflection panes, reducing overall causes by water. Now, they improved the culling performance and efficiency for scenes containing static geometry, improved culling performance during cinematic playback, revised synchronization with their simulation thread to improve performance and reduce latency, optimized a variety of lanterns to no longer require full rigid body physics simulation, optimize content for a variety of visual effects, reducing their instance costs and GPU costs, and more. What I'm hoping is that this means that it's going to run better for all those over on Steam Deck. Now, they optimized objects in installation of code. As a dyslexic man, I apologize, for a variety of characters, reducing their instantiation, that's the right word, of costs. They optimize various UI screens for rendering performance and reduce spikes that happen when opening them, and they fixed a major regression in tessellization performance affecting No Rest for the Wicked on Steam OS Beta 3.6 in collaboration with Valve. With the heart emoji attached to it, we're going to highlight that. This is going to be something we're going to test out. I have the game on Steam, which is really important, and that is something that I know a lot of people have brought up. A lot of people have continued to ask, how's the performance on my Steam Deck? And we'll go from there. Next, we have our quality of life improvements. Inline hints have been introduced. This is an optional toggle that will be enabled by default. This is going to remove the pop-ups that happened at the top of the screen, and item icons and input prompts appear besides the loot and interactables. Now, updated the item previews. They've also existing cinematic polish updates, and a special thank you to Koraka for the follow over on Twitch. Players will now be able to claim the Cherem armor set from Captain Randolph regardless of linking their Twitch accounts via entitlements. The Nameless Pass cranes now have proper physics. They added the ability for NPCs to look at the player if they were previously unable to. They added in new skybox art. The environment will no longer have extreme depth of field if the player is a distance away. Many buff icons have been improved and are now indicative of their effects. Fillmore has a 50% discount on items he sells and will repair gear for free while in Mariner's Keep as a thank you for saving him. Once the player meets him in Sacrament for the first time, he will reward the player with upgrade materials. Player characters now kneel and have visual effects around them as they fast travel between areas. Nameless Pass, Vista Overlooking, and Western Camp has been improved. Rusty Coppelish backstab animation has been changed to fit the weapon better. I'd love to know if you guys are able to phonically help me pronounce that Coppelish word. It's tripping me up. Anyway, Finley now has updated attire and is accompanied by his companion. Armor descriptions and names have been improved that they match the item type properly. They added in new stages and dialogue for many NPCs throughout Sacrament. They added loot to some secret areas around the Shallows and Mariner's Keep. They added in new types of dogs to Sacrament. The new added in a new silver ore icon. Killing enemies results in them dropping experience orbs that fly to the player. Yeah, I can tell you guys, from my own experience and having seen this in reality, like, I love this about the Crucible. I'm so glad that they are bringing this into the open world. It is a beautiful thing. It feels satisfying, especially when an enemy is killed, just to kind of have that animation and the controller vibrates a little bit. It's really, really good. Anyway, players can now compare items when looking inside of a chest. They updated the model for Odyssea's horn. The interacting with whispers has a new animation and is now smoother. They added optional quest step to speak with Winnick before Odysseia after defeating Derek for the first time. Food ingredients from the environment will now have the plant of the ingredient disappear once it is looted. The items in the chest houses for community chest are now able to be used directly at vendors without them being in the player's inventory. Woohoo! Woo! Some copper ore nodes are now available throughout Isla Sacra instead of just being available in Tier 1 zones. They added a rotation swaying to static camera shots, IEG, when interacting with vendors. They updated the map to include the cavern besides the mountain gate in the serum chamber. The key items that are one use now disappear from the key items inventory tab after being used. The exterior of Eleanor and Whitaker's Tier 3 shops has been added lighting to make their significance clearer. Players can now see that their stagger bar is on the HUD. Bosses now have much greater chance to drop enchanted gear. Weapons that do not have their attribute requirements fulfilled by the player will show a new graphic on the item and will create a prompt reminding players if equipped. The Black Trench has ore and wood resources placed throughout. They improve the distribution of herb ingredients throughout the game. Gems are now stored in the miscellaneous inventory tab. Gems can now show their effects when placed on items within their tooltip. One-way doors will now say if they cannot be opened from a particular side. Health will be restored upon waking up in the rookery. Rings now show if they are damaged in the HUD. And then items will now automatically merge stacks in the inventory. This is a really nice quality of life. We also know that they have taken the inventory to stack them up to 99, which is really, really freaking exciting. After enchanting an item, the item will now appear on the left window to view. Refineries now have a loot all option. Thank you very much. Food ingredients will now state that they can be eaten, but are more effective when used in a recipe. Indicators have been added to the inventory tabs to show that there are new items there, and clicking on a realm no longer enters it, so players don't accidentally enter realms. Housing items now only show in the quick use menu when you are in a house. The Whisper Stone is now sold by Essential when the ability to buy items from him is unlocked. These can be placed in a player's house to teleport directly to and from the house. And I've seen this in action and it is glorious. What this means is that you can also teleport to your last used Whisper, or you can teleport to your house. So we're seeing a couple of options, and I'm wondering if as the game expands physically, if maybe you end up like having a couple of houses or something like that, so you can kind of jump around a handful of places without always having to hoof it on foot. Food is now prioritized over ingredients when the currently selected quick use item runs out. Thank you. The fast traveling menu in Sacrament, the player's house, now shows the location of the last used Whisper. That's also really nice. The fast travel is automatically unlocked upon reaching Sacrament, and the main Sacrament Whisper no longer needs to be touched. Housing items now state that their descriptions that they can only be used in a house, and Nameless Pass will now be more accurate in showing the current danger level for each part of the zone. This is a huge quality of life feature, and we haven't even gotten to the content yet. So this feels really, really significant. All right, continuing on, we got some quest updates. 3 new quests have been added: the Weeping Sisters, the Root That Binds, and Faith and Flame. The Ellsworth speech cinematic and the breach content after no longer requires the players to complete steps of the spoken and unspoken to become available. Finishing either Servant of God or Rats and Raiders will now increase the danger level of the other zones. And a special thank you to Bad Player, who has followed over on Twitch. For the game modes, hardcore mode, take on the ultimate challenge of completing No Rest for the Wicked without dying a single time. I know I'm going to have some fall damage. We'll see how far I can get. Only hardcore characters can enter hardcore realms. Once a hardcore character dies, it is changed to a regular character that can be played on non-hardcore realms. I do wonder, because if you progress that hardcore realm far enough, you know, in starting a new character, like I wonder if that's going to be something where it's just like, nah, you just always want to start a new realm with a new hardcore character. And Broody, thank you so much for the follow over on Twitch. All right, so let's continue on. We got cinematics and areas next. For the cinematics, 17 new story scenes have been added. So for all of you guys, especially in my comments, who don't want multiplayer, who've been waiting for single player story expansion, this is your update. This is for you. And I really cannot wait to hear everybody's thoughts and speculations about the story that we'll be having in offline conversations, not to spoil it for anybody out there who is not yet picked up the game. This includes 3 cinematics, 5 hybrid cutscenes, and 9 game view cutscenes. For areas, they've added 2 new danger zones, the Lowland Meadows and the Marion Woods. And we got another follow, Ducky Loves Games, over on Twitch. Thank you very much. 1 new unlockable safe zone, the Marion Village. 1 new temporary safe zone, the Hunter's Vale. 1 area expanded. Nameless Pass now has 2 sections and multiple new states. I cannot wait to see what they've done with the Nameless Pass. The new Dark Caves, the Coast Cellar Caves at the Shallows, the Meadowgate Cave at the Lowland Meadows, and the Wolf Den in Nameless Pass. They've added in a new house. The Burrow is now available in Sacrament in Beggar's Alley. And character light now matches the rims and the environmental lighting, and it only brightens existing lights instead of adding white, beige, green rims of its own. Improvements have been made to unify wind direction and wind strength. All right. Oh yeah, we got a great question. I don't know if Thomas will be is able to share, right? Because there's always going to be a time in marketing. But Chad is asking, how long for co-op? How long for co-op? That's something that I think a lot of us are looking forward to. He says, hard to say. We're still making adjustments and test and so on, but co-op is coming up next. Woo! Sweet action, freaking Jackson. Moving on to the vendors. The vendor system has been updated. All vendors now have a limit to the items that they can sell every day. A new vendor named Laria has been added to Sacrament. 4 new vendors are available in Marion Village: Dolan, Trello, Cyril, and Ermagerd. Ermagerd. Oh, sorry. It makes me laugh. I'm probably butchering the name, but that's just how my brain sees it. All right, let's dive into our system updates. New endgame plague system. This is going to be really great. I've seen some people talk about, like, hey, the map kind of is, like, what's going on with the map? Why is it all of a sudden enemies are back in there and I've already cleared it? That's a big part of it. This is going to take it to the next level. After the player has completed all of the breach content, the plague system will become active. Interacting with the plague system will infect a zone at random over time. The player can also choose to purposefully infect a zone by burning items, resources at a bonfire. The plague can be cleansed by killing 65% of the enemies within the area and then finally killing the plagued boss. Players can also cleanse the entire world of any plagued zones by visiting the Central within the Cherim Crucible. Items and resources can now be burned at a bonfire within the affected area to increase the plague level, increasing both the difficulty and the rewards. Burning a torn effigy will immediately summon the plagued boss. Corruptions have been added, burning item resources alongside increasing the difficulty and rewards that will add corruptions to the infected area. These corruptions add modifiers that influence the player's enemy in numerous different ways. When we talk about replayability, this is going to be so fun to kind of see and explore what that truly means. I love this kind of stuff. I know that not everybody does, but this truly is something really exciting. Burning non-torn resources will add corruptions to the area quicker than if a torn resource were used. For the rewards, enemies in plagued areas will drop better loot depending on the current plague level. Plague bosses can drop unique items. Torn resources can be looted from enemies within the zone, which can be used to exalt gear or craft a torn effigy. Really interested to see ultimately how that works and that feels. So yeah, boom baby. All right, weapon scaling rework. Prior to the breach update, damage gained from weapon upgrades would add to damage gained from attributes. This means that you could have a fully upgraded weapon with 0 attributes in the scaling stat for that weapon and it would still do good damage. Now, the damage from upgrade multiplies with the damage from attributes. This results in both attributes and weapon upgrades having a more equal responsibility in damage dealt. For status effects, we got some reworks here. Burn deals fire damage over time when the player hits an enemy with heat damage. When this status effect is fully built up, it deals even more damage. This is cool. I'm interested to see, I guess, stacking these status effects. Freeze. Enemies can become frozen upon being hit with cold damage. Upon hitting a frozen enemy with physical damage, they will trigger the shatter effect, which deals increased massive damage to the enemy and ends the freeze effect. Ooh. Shock. Chain lightning effect triggers, dealing damage to the enemy and those around it. I love this. Dude, electric magic, let's freaking go. I'm so excited about that. Infection. Enemies affected by the plague status effect will take additional damage when they are infected, and the target will also have reduced healing. Okay, so we got, like the 4, we got plague, basically shock, freeze, and burn. There we go. The hunger system has been implemented. Players no longer have a cooldown on food. Instead, players will have a limited amount of healing items that they can use per combat encounter. Players will start the game with the ability to use 5 food per combat encounter and can upgrade this limit via the Watcher using Plague Ichor. Tutorial system rework. Comprehensive pass on tutorialization to improve tutorials when they appear, and a revamped UI. Dodge mechanic rework. Quickstep now has more iframes than a medium roll. That makes sense. The player no longer gets slowed after performing multiple consecutive quick steps, and medium roll no longer has iframes covering the full animation, which means players can get hit during the final part of the roll animation. I think that sounds fair. I do, I always kind of prioritize the roll over quick step. Maybe this will make quick step a little bit more impactful, but there's also blink, which is a rune skill, which can kind of, offset you. So there's definitely going to be some build options there for sure. The poise system has been reworked. Entities will not take any poise damage if they are already staggered. Entities will now play a hit reaction dependent on when they get attacked. For example, hitting an enemy while they are mid-attack will be more effective in interrupting them than attacking them at the end of their attack. Armor and resistance have been reworked. Upgrading armor now provides a flat bonus regardless of the type, which means that it is much more worthwhile to upgrade cloth and leather armor. Armor now gives elemental resistances. Rings now only give 2 elemental resistances, but are now percentage increases. They added armor penetration to entities, which means that a higher level entity will deal more damage to a lower level entity. This is what I'm really excited to play around with, is the shield rework. Shields have been given a shield resistance value instead of just providing additional armor to the players. Shields only have an armor value limited capabilities, as armor has a diminishing return effect. Players can run while using light shields, cannot run while using medium shields, and cannot move while using great shields. Blocking no longer costs stamina. Oh my gosh, thank you. Elemental damage now gets mitigated by shield resistance. Shields no longer grant poise defense, but instead deal poise damage on block. This means enemy stagger bar progress will not fall if a player continually blocks an enemy attack. Enemies will recoil if poise defense is lower than the shield's poise damage. I do think this actually drains poise. There's something that it uses. It's not stamina, but you can block a lot more. So, and that was what we learned in the event there. All right. Dynamic gear system introduced. Previously, weapons and armor would only drop at their given tiers. They will now drop at an upgrade level dependent on both player level and enemy level. This means a tier 1 weapon can now drop at a much higher upgrade level anywhere in the world. The Danos project improvements. Players can upgrade Danos workers to speed up the process of their projects permanently. Woo-hoo! That's going to be nice. I know we've had a lot of conversation in the community about timers, and the way you solve that problem is you don't get rid of timers. You just give the player the ability to invest in their character and their progress, so they don't have to worry about that. Essential now has the ability to instantly complete any Danos project at the cost of a Gloam Seed. Ooh, very cool. Improvements to targeting. During Hardlock, the origin point is now based on where the target dot currently is, which means switching targets should now be much more accurate. The improvements for distinguishing between the player is in auto lock and hard lock mode during combat. The target lock is now more forgiving when an enemy goes off screen due to camera changes. Bounties and challenges UI redesign. This actually looks really good. This is something that it stood out to me really quickly. Abandoning bounties and challenges is now set to a different keybind button than accepting them. They updated the message when abandoning bounties and challenges. Multiple bounties can now be accepted at the same time. Item rewards can now be viewed before accepting a new bounty and challenge. The circular area indicator that appears on the map has been updated. Bounties and challenges can be tracked on screen using the toggle button N. All weapons now always have 4 runes, even when enchanted. I'm glad for this. This is going to help with build diversity, because it kind of felt like everything was more leaning into, you got to a point where it's like, I'm just going to customize all of this gear so I can have all my runes. Every staff wand bow rune now only consumes focus if the rune is successfully used. If the player is interrupted during cast, it will not consume any focus. As a mage, this is so huge. I get smacked and then it's like, oh my gosh, now we got to play defensive for a while. They doubled base weapon damage, max health per health attribute, enemy health, and enemy damage. Durability damage on death is now set to 1 to 10 instead of 5. Items in chests can now stack to 99 of 20 for food and 25 for other items. Fillmore now only upgrades weapons, while Mira and Mary will now upgrade armor. Enemies in the Crucible now grant experience at a reduced rate from the overworld. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. It doesn't have to be like great experience. It just needs to give me a little bit of something, a little snack, if you will. Food values, buff effects, and buff durations are rebalanced. Crafting material costs redefined to make more sense. Experience potions now grant a 10, 20, and 30% bonus experience from small, medium, and large, respectively, and last an hour instead of giving experience increases. We knew this was coming. I think I do agree with this, but I will miss the like stacking experience potions to level. This means you have to go play. You just put yourself into action as opposed to socking away. This is gonna be great. They rebalance the resource cost of upgrading weapons and armor. They increase repair costs slightly. The roles of exclamation mark and quest markers are now reversed. That makes sense. With the exclamation mark signifying a new quest and question mark signifying the end of a quest step. That did throw me off quite a bit. I got used to it, so we'll see if I can get reused to how it is elsewhere. Quick selection menus will now not show the description of the items. Finally, Finley will now appear every day from 2000 to 2400 in real time. The aiming of flasks and bombs has been greatly improved. Danos will now show players what level each project is at in his menu. NMED aggro zones implemented around some NPC setups and vestiges. Quest moments, vestiges/quest moments. Runes now have an additional poise defense when using them. The improvement in dialogue UI, A button appears instead of Y and animates when pressed. It is no longer possible to extract the arrow rune out of bows. The kickback to enemies now occurs if they are frozen. Extracting runes now costs gold. That makes sense. Players are now properly set on fire when damaged by environmental fiery effects. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff to cover when you think about it in just terms of system adjustments. I think there's a lot of really good things in here. A couple things that I think players are going to have to take some time to get used to, but if you guys have any thoughts, I'd always love to read them. All right, now let's dive into the gear updates for those who are listening. I'm just going to go over what they've added, not going to name it off. You can see it on screen. You can see the names themselves. Being that it doesn't kind of go into what it does, I think it's just more important to kind of get through this section because there are some of these that do tell you what they do or what buffs they add, and I will go through that when we get to them. So we have two new weapons, the gauntlets and the wand archetypes have been added. Then you also have new weapons for existing archetypes have been added. This was what I found surprising. You have one-hand axes, one-hand straight swords, one-hand clubs have been added. You got 4 in that case. One-handed maces, 1 in this case. Two-handed great axes, you got 4 that were added. Two-handed scythes, 2 that got added. Two-handed great swords, 1 has been added, and staffs, 2 have been added. For the runes, you can see a huge list here of various different wand runes. You can see a shorter list here for the gauntlet runes. They have also added in one-handed runes, two-handed runes, staff runes, and then all weapons have also received some additional runes. For armor sets, they've added in a huge amount. We're probably looking at 20 plus armor sets just in that list alone. And this is where we get into the core changes. New unique rings have been added. You have the Scarlet Ring, which will swap max health and max focus. You have the Ring of Determination. This spends health if there is not enough focus available. The focus cost decreased by up to 60% based on missing health. You have the Battle Cry Ring, spend health instead of focus, and you cannot lifesteal with this ring. And Serendipity Ring, food healing is applied over time. Healing has been increased by 30%. For the existing rings and what has been reworked. You have the Rune Ring. The Rune Ring damage increased by 30%. Attack damage decreased by 10. The Thistle Ring deals 25% damage on damage taken. Lose 6 stamina on damage taken. The Snake Ring deal 20% damage on block. Lose 6 stamina on block. So if you want to bring back that stamina drain that is no longer on shields, you can do that with the Snake Ring. The Plagued Ring, lifesteal increased by 20% at low health. Max health has been decreased by 20%. The Fierce Ring, damage increased by 20% for 10 seconds after damage taken. The Band of Calmness, focus gain increased by 25%. Max focus increased by 50%. And the Solace Ring, regenerable health increased by 30%. I think this is probably going to be where we see some frustration within the veterans, because you could see literally how things have changed just with the existing rings and their various different perks. For the unique gear, the Glimmering Bulwark, you gain enlightenment for 6 seconds after parry. Rune damage is increased by 20% while enlightened, and focus gain is increased by 30% while enlightened. The Tarnished Wand, gain enlightenment for 6 seconds after inflicting shock buildup. Stamina cost decreased by 30% while enlightened, and damage taken decreased by 20% while enlightened. And Dawn Never Comes, gain 1 of 3 tolls for 15 seconds after damage taken. Damage increased by 20% on first toll. Lifesteal, I'm wondering if that's lifesteal, increased by 20% on second toll. Damage taken increased by 20% on the third toll. They've reworked some uniques here. For those who got the bow, I don't know if anybody got the bow. That's a debate that we've had long running. You can sound off in the live stream if you manage to get the unique bow. The Lacquered Bow, heat damage increased by 20% for 6 seconds after cold damage dealt. Cold damage increased by 20% for 6 seconds after heat damage dealt. Gain 30% stamina on damage dodged. Midnight Blade, shock buildup increased by 50% for 5 seconds after inflicting shock buildup. Gain 30% focusing on parry. Refill focus on backstab. Then you have Proud Lance, electric damage infusion after sprinting for 4 seconds. Electric damage increased by 40%. Movement speed increased by 10%. Falling Sky, damage increased by 10% of current focus. Gain 50% stamina on focus use. Shnew, lifesteal increased by 25%. Damage increased by 30% against low health enemies. Refill stamina on parry. Cylinder and Stone deal 40% heat damage on rune attack, deal 25% heat damage on parry, stagger resistance increased by 30%. The Fetid Club, damage increased by 10% of current weight, damage taken decreased by 20% while charging, refill stamina on staggering an enemy. Corpse Smeared Blade, gain taint for 15 seconds after inflicting infection buildup. Lifesteal increased by 30% while tainted. Max stamina increased by 40% while tainted. Drain health while tainted. They've also added in lots of new recipes for various different crafting gear. All right, enchantments. This is going to be a little bit easier to read. We will not, in this case, be diving through the Google Sheets, but if you guys want to go see all the enchantments for yourself, they do have that listed in the Google Sheets as well. All right, let's get into it. The enchantment system has been reworked. Almost all the enchantments found in the game are either new or have been reworked. Full list and explanations of their mechanics can be found via the Google Sheets. Many event-based enchantments have been introduced, which massively expands upon the build diversity of the game. Some of these events include things such as after fatality and after charge attack, or on damage dodged, and many more. Fatality is when an enemy is killed with a special rune or a charged attack. Regainable health upon taking damage, the player will have a limited time and opportunity to gain health back a proportion of the lost health by hitting the enemy back. Oh, that sounds fun. I'm very curious. Elemental enchantments that were found on weapons which granted additional damage now have been replaced with overrides that completely changes the damage type of the weapon. Magical items now only have up to 3 enchantments, while plagued can give up to 4, along them having a plagued downside. Fallen Embers can now be used to reroll or add enchantments to already enchanted items. Now for the enemy and bosses. 3 new campaign bosses have been added: the Lost Huntress, the Caretaker and Tusk, and the Winged Brood. 1 new side content bosses, the Unbreakable Egg. I cannot wait to see what that's like. 8 plague system bosses: Sindred's Vow, Marin's Voice, Marin's Might, Anora's Shadow, the Sayer's Echo, the Bloodbound Torment, Daughters of the Veil, Kylan's Faithful, and Kylan's Forgotten. They've updated various bosses. Falstad's Derek, both phases receive a major polish, including better animations, adjusted behavior, cleaned up hitbox data, and added new abilities. For the Riven Twins, they received a major update to help them stand out from other enemies of the similar type, including improved polish and animations, changed accents in animations, tweaked behavior, and updated all special abilities. The Echo Knight general polish passed for both phases, including refined hitbox data for better precision, enhanced hit reactions caused by the boss, and reworked one of the boss's abilities from scratch. 2 new enemy factions with a total of 12 new enemies have been added. The new Balak Tal faction, the new Harvester faction, and 6 new enemies for existing factions for the Torns, the Plague Beasts, the Beasts, 9 new critters, and existing enemy changes, as in the Torn Crawler got a polish pass and an updated model. They also got fixed and reinforced unburrow behavior. The Torn Grubahost behavior overhaul, now more aggressive. They polished animations, remove visually similar attacks to improve readability, and the Bonded Witch deals more damage. For humanoid updates, they updated the hit reactions all humanoids based off a weapon class and archetype. Each now plays the appropriate hit reaction when struck. General polish pass, cleansed animations, refine hitboxes, and tweak behavior. Further tighten hitbox data for more precise interactions. Backstab feature rebalanced in position and enemy required to trigger a backstab now demands greater precision. Every humanoid archetype gained anti-backstab behavior, improved in-turn behavior for all humanoids, varying by weapon type. They updated out-of-combat animations by weapon. Humanoids, except Risens, no longer use the drunk walk animation. Refined movement settings. Humanoid navigation is now more accurate. Refined unlockable attacks for all humanoid archetypes to make them more readable. Each humanoid received evasive ability against projectile attacks. Added out-of-screen protection. Enemies should not launch projectiles if they are out of screen. And factional updates. Knight's Tarth added crossbow shot and kamikaze rat abilities. Swing fire trap nail deals more damage. Boarskin added spear throw ability. False Ones updated behavior with better match to the Echo Knight's theme. Improved factional behavior so that they use abilities more frequently. Bounties updated. The Knights of Kelnap, Plague Doctors, the Huntsmen, the Reapers, and the Red have received major polish passes. Each ability was updated and refined. Bounty targets received behavior updates to reinforce the unique challenges that they present. The general enemy improvements have many enemies will now react to the player attempting to get behind them to perform a backstab. Updated hit reactions for all creatures based off the archetype. Creatures now play the correct hit reaction when struck by the player. General polish pass, cleansed animation, and refined hitboxes, and tweak behavior. They tightened hitbox data for fairer encounters and added drown animations for all creature types. Now for our balance updates, arrows now cost focus to use. Falling Sky Staff no longer craftable. This is definitely the arrows costing focus is definitely a balance change. That's probably that kills my build. It is what it is. The Flask and Bombs now deal more damage. Vial items now last 2 minutes. Vials and Focus now increases focus gain instead of giving a flat focus amount. This is something I felt immediately when playing in the preview build. The Weapon Oils and Elemental Overriding Enchantments now last 60 seconds. Gnarled Snaw now deals less poise damage. Dual Daggers now deal less poise damage and have less focus gain. Throw runes now cost 50 focus, but have had their damage adjusted accordingly. Gem drop rate has been significantly reduced. Heal Aura is now a channelable rune. It will heal the player for as long as the player channels it, which consumes focus in turn. Channel is now a channeled rune. It will grant focus for as long as the player channels it, which will consume health in turn. Lightning Claw now deals less damage and poise damage. Most items enchantments now grant flat amounts of focus that have either removed or reworked to instead grant focus gain increases. Reap now cost 100 focus, Spin now cost 100 focus, Pole Fury now cost 100 focus, Berserk Strike now 100 focus, Wave Spells now cost 100 focus. The player is now considered to be at low health when below 50%. Wooden Sword buff, Wooden Sword's been buffed. Governor's Sword buff. All bow runes have been rebalanced. Scythe and Wrenches charged attack buff. Dried Hive now deals less damage within the first attack. Bleeder's Delight now deals less damage within the run attack. I'm assuming it meant rune, but it is what it is. For input, custom cursors now available in game. And for those of you out there, I know we've been waiting long for this, PlayStation icons for the controller are now supported on the PC. This is great. I know this is something I've been asked about it several times, especially as a controller player. So hopefully you guys are excited about that, especially those who've been waiting for that update. Music, new music composed by Gareth Conker. Audio, full audio coverage of Breach Explanation, updated a mix across of all the existing content, updated combat audio to be more satisfying. They updated the content to mix for a variety of EA weapons such as Starlight and the Great Sword, along with the design for new weapon types and spells. The equipped type of weapon will now be represented in the player's movement and softly sound effects, vivid ambiances, and environmental sound effects for a variety of new areas. Real-time processing of the environments for plagued areas. Voice actor recordings and integrations for a huge number of new and existing NPCs. Custom voice actor recordings and sound design for new enemy factions, monsters, wildlife, and bosses. Group voiceover recordings for NPCs and diegetic music. They updated the voiceover and sound effects for player emotes. Music system design and integration for new cinematic boss and exploration music. Bespoke Follies stage recording for cinematic cutscenes. Updated player interactions, sound effects for a variety of vegetation. UI SFX for a number of system panels, including Danos the Builder, Captain Randolph, Plague Screens, and the Essential. Audio support for a number of kickable debris, items scattered throughout the world. Improved damage over time, tech, and sound effects for elemental damage. Technical audio improvements, including improved performance and fast travel fixes, new music system support, and sound host location fixes. That all being said, let's continue on because I'm not going to go, by the way, for those of you who are curious, I'm not going to go through the bug fixes. This is just too big. I could scroll for another like 10 minutes, I think. So the bug fixes are there for those of you who want to kind of go through them, but we do have the visual effects, new dynamic leaves, new ground impact effects. Grass is now able to be burned away by fiery effects. Fast traveling via Whisper now has a new visual effect. And localization, they added an updated localization text in many places across multiple languages. Do me a favor, guys, if you end up enjoying this update, be sure to go and put a review out on Steam. Obviously, with the gap, with their with them, with the Private Division being sold, that has had a huge impact on the frequency of these updates. But here we are. Today is the day. Go and leave them a great review, and that's going to be something very, very helpful. Now I'm going to wrap up this video, guys, and we got Varen hanging out in Discord. If you want to come hang out and be a part of this as a kind of a podcast gameplay discussion, all are welcome. Top link in the description will get you there. Be sure to hit that like button and sub for more, and thank you so much for spending some time with me. I know this was a big video, and I'm gonna get this over to Jack. So if nothing else, sound off in the comments with thanks, Jack, if you made it all the way to the end of this video. For Ginger Prime, my name is Brian. Thank you so much for watching, and now we're gonna get back to the live stream, and we're gonna be getting back to doing a giveaway for today as well. So thank you and take care. And I'm back. Chat told me that they have added in a little note after the patch notes. It says, hello, oh my goodness, hi. Lamo, leave these in the patch notes. Easter egg if they get past 32 pages. Do they read these? Maybe they will see these. Okay, I need to leave. Bye. Oh man, what a classic. All right, we're gonna add that into the video. We'll see.